Hi, fourth graders. Remember me? I'm Shannon Williams, and I did a video for you last week talking about growing potatoes. Hopefully you're having fun doing a survey and figuring out the best way to eat potatoes as you talk to everybody. So this week, as I promised, we would read a book. And I don't know how many of you have read the Bailey School Adventures, but this was one of my kids' favorite book series to read. So we're going to take a couple of times each week and read through Ghost Don't Eat Potato Chips. Chapter 1, Great Aunt Matilda. Ah, Grandma, Eddie whined. Why do I have to go? Great Aunt Matilda doesn't even like me. Eddie's grandmother sighed. Because Matilda is my sister, and families take care of each other. That old bat never did anything for us, Eddie mumbled. Eddie's grandmother thumped him on the head. That's not the point. She's been by herself since Uncle Jasper died. Now she's sick and needs our help. All you have to do is take her meals to her. You and Howie can take her lunch on your way to the playground. Eddie pulled a baseball cap over his curly red hair and grabbed the dish off the kitchen counter. He didn't complain to his grandmother again, but he slammed the door extra loud on the way out. His best friend, Howie, was waiting for him on the street corner. What's that? Howie asked. It's a sick casserole for my great Aunt Matilda. Don't you mean it's a great casserole for your sick aunt? Howie asked. Eddie sniggered. You don't know my grandmother's cooking. Howie laughed and pulled out a crushed bag of potato chips from his shirt pocket. Want some garlic chips? No, those things are worse than my grandmother's cooking, Eddie said. You should get the kind I like. The two boys headed down a side street with Howie crunching away. In just a few minutes, they stood in front of Aunt Matilda's house. The branches of a huge weeping willow tree dragged the ground beside the fence. The rusty iron gate squeaked open. Eddie and Howie looked at the big house without saying a word. Dark windows stared down at them as they walked up the crumbling steps to the door. This house looks like a reject from an old horror movie, Howie whispered. Eddie nodded. It's definitely ready for a wrecking ball. Howie crunched nervously on his potato chips. Let's hurry up. This place is creepy. Eddie lifted the rusting door knocker and then let it fall with a thud. Thud. A window on the second floor creaked open and a gray-haired woman looked out. Who's at my door? It's us, Eddie yelled. Grandma sent your lunch. Aunt Matilda wrinkled her nose like she'd just sucked a lemon. Well, hurry and bring it to me and shut the door behind you. Then she slammed the window so hard it rattled. Eddie pushed the door open. A musty smell hit them like an ocean wave. Whew! It smells like something died in here. Has your Aunt Matilda ever heard of air fresheners? Howie asked. Quit that whispering and bring me my lunch, Aunt Matilda said from her bedroom. An old lady could die of starvation before getting fed by you. I'd like to feed her a thing or two, Eddie muttered. Only it wouldn't be supper. The two kids stepped around a pile of yellowed newspapers and started up the creaking steps. Eddie's shoelaces slapped the faded carpet, and the boys sidestepped a broken chair in the upstairs hall. Aunt Matilda's room was at the end of the hall on the second floor. Aunt Matilda was sitting up in bed with a box of tissues by her side. Wadded up tissues were scattered on the floor. Wisp of gray hair hung around her face like spider webs, and her wrinkled skin was the color of old pears. She looked like she'd been through World War II instead of the flu. She pointed a bony finger at Eddie. I remember you. You're the mean one. Eddie shrugged. Must run in the family. Humph! Aunt Matilda grunted. Who's that with you? I don't know him. Howie choked on a potato chip. I'm Eddie's friend, Howie. Would you like some chips? He held out the crumpled bag. That's the garlic kind my Jasper always ate. That's probably what killed him. Who's Jasper? Howie whispered as he stuffed the bag in his shirt pocket. My dead uncle, Eddie whispered back. Then before Aunt Matilda could say anything else, Eddie shoved the dish at her. Grandma said to ask you if you needed anything else. Aunt Matilda nodded. As long as you're here, you can water the garden. As they walked down the steps, Eddie and Howie heard Aunt Matilda blowing her nose. I never knew you had a crazy aunt, Howie said. She's not half as crazy as Uncle Jasper was, Eddie said as he pushed open the back door. We're just lucky he's not around anymore. Chapter 2, Weed Soup. I can't believe she calls this a garden, Eddie said, shaking his head. It's just a bunch of weeds. I'll bet your Aunt Matilda uses it to make weed soup. Howie laughed as he helped drag a garden hose between the gnarled trees. Crabgrass salad too, Eddie giggled as he tried to turn on the water. Something's wrong with this faucet. Let me try, Howie said, dropping his bag of potato chips on an old picnic table. No, if I can't get it, you sure can't. Eddie didn't get a chance to try again because Aunt Matilda's screech interrupted them. Did you expect me to eat with my finger? She yelled from the window. Bring me a fork and a glass of water. Eddie shoved the hose at Howie. You'll have to water the garden while I go water Aunt Matilda. Howie looked at the old house and his friend disappeared inside. Several windows were broken and wood was nailed over empty spaces. The attic window was so high, Howie had to tilt his head back to see it. What Howie saw made him freeze. Someone was staring down from the attic window. Howie rubbed his eyes and looked again. No, it was there. That's strange, Howie muttered. You're strange, Eddie said as he came out the back door. If you don't watch out, a bird will get you in the eye. Howie ignored Eddie's comment. Were you just in the attic? Eddie grabbed the hose from Howie. I don't even know how to get to the attic of this joint. Does anyone else live here? Howie asked. Just my crazy aunt. Eddie tried to twist the water spigot. Why do you care? Maybe we better call the police because I just saw someone in the attic. Howie pointed to the small window at the top of the house. Eddie stared at the window for a few minutes and then left. Don't be silly. It was just a shadow from those big trees. Howie looked at the window again, but he didn't see anything because Eddie finally got the hose on and squirted Howie right in the face. Cut it out, Howie yelled. Eddie laughed. Thought you might like to cool off. Howie backed away from the weed patch. If you don't quit it, I'm going to the playground without you. Okay, I'll stop it if you'll wait for me. As Eddie squirted the plants, Howie went to get his potato chips. Instead, he found an empty chip bag. Who said you could eat all my chips? I told you, I hate garlic chips, Eddie said. Howie looked under the old picnic table and gulped. Eddie, come here. Eddie dropped the hose and walked over to the picnic table. What do you want? Howie pointed. Look under there. Eddie shook his head, but he glanced under the table. So you spilled your chips. What's the big deal? Howie banged his hand on the table. Look, Eddie. Really look. This is important. Okay. Keep your eyeballs glued on, Eddie looked again. Hey, the chips are letters A, T, T, I, C. What's that spell? Attic! Attic! Howie yelled at Eddie. Somebody spelled out attic! Eddie shrugged. It's just a coincidence. Either that or Aunt Matilda has smart ants in her yard. With that, Eddie stepped on the chips, smashed them all to tiny pieces. Howie looked back up at the attic window. It was still empty. Maybe it had been a shadow, but what if it hadn't? Join me on Thursday.